Okay, hello everyone, happy Wednesday. My name is Sophia Korcher and I am the Assistant Director of the Women of ALPFA Boston Committee. And on behalf of the entire Women of ALPFA team, we hope that you're having a safe and healthy start of the new year. I'm very excited for tonight and we would like to welcome all of you to our very first event. Before we get to the good stuff, I will just go over a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and will be shared in our on-demand and YouTube platforms next week. The chat box is enabled to communicate with attendees and speakers as well as interactive controls, so we encourage you to please use it. Finally, we will have 15 minutes towards the end for Q&A. Please make sure to use the Q&A feature to enter your questions. Before we start, please go grab your pen and paper to take some notes. I'm sure we will be learning a lot today. All right, here to give you an intimate introduction to ALPFA Boston and tonight's event, please help me in welcoming Laura Alvarez-Ragus, Director of Women of ALPFA Boston.
Thank you, Sophia. I am very excited for this event because, as you mentioned, it is our first event of the year, and we're doing it in partnership with Innovation Women. Founded in 2015, Innovation Women is an organization whose mission is to provide its members with visibility opportunities to advance their career and grow their business. Through their platform, they connect subject matter experts to media and speaking opportunities. We are thrilled to announce that thanks to this partnership, we're able to offer our ALPFA Boston members with a 25% off special discount to their first year annual membership to Innovation Women. For more information about this discount, please email us at social@boston.alpha.org or stay tuned for our ALPFA Boston newsletter, which will include the code. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker for this evening. She is an award-winning marketing, PR, and social media professional, founder of Carlton PR and Marketing, Innovation Nights, and Innovation Women. Welcome, Bobbie Carlton. We are so glad to have you and thank you so much for joining us. Please take it away.
Hey there, I'm wondering if somebody actually can let me start my video. That would be great because it says I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. So we just get access to that. Great. Yay, it works. Awesome. All right. Hello, everyone, and good evening. Although I think it's good morning for some people based on the time zones I saw in that chat. Welcome. I'm glad you were able to join us. And I am going to actually be sharing my screen and taking us through a little bit of a presentation here. So hold on one second. And we will be presenting some slides. So hello and welcome. My name is Bobbie Carlton. I'm the founder of Innovation Women. We are an online speaker bureau. And before we get started, I will tell you a little bit of a story. I will have to admit that for many years, I was a very, very, very nervous speaker. And so bad that I actually sweated through my shirt and most of my clothes at a time when I had to stand up in front of a number of people. So going forward, I will tell you that that is not always the case, and you get better over time. I've spoken at the United Nations. I've spoken at the IEEE Women in Engineering International Leadership Conference from the main stage, and I was even invited to do my own Tedx talk. So everything is possible. If I can do it, you can do it. As Laura mentioned, I actually have a number of companies that I own. So my day job is I run a public relations and marketing firm. The night job is Innovation Nights, which is an online speaker bureau. I'm sorry, Innovation Nights is a new product showcase, and Innovation Women is what I call the dream job. It is the online speaker bureau. And the reason I'm here, and probably you're here tonight. So over the summer, maybe everybody got into a little bit of Amazon retail therapy. I know I did. I actually bought 2 additional companies. So one of them is another service 4 speakers called My Speaker Leads. And I also bought a magazine for women entrepreneurs called Lioness Magazine. I'd like to start us by having you all close your eyes. I know I can't see you, but I want you to close your eyes anyway. And I would like you to imagine that you are going to a conference. And at that conference, yes, a live one, I know you remember those days, you're going to see the foremost experts in your industry. You're going to see the leaders, the most important people that do what you do. You're settling yourself into the audience. You've got maybe a cup of coffee. You are ready to hear some big time experts talk. Now, I want you to open your eyes. Do all of those experts look like this? Yeah. We call this the all male, all pale, and all stale panel. It's often the same old white guys. Am I right? Yep. Now, don't get me wrong. I have nothing against old white guys. I happen to be married one, but I don't want to hear them talking all the time. I want to hear other people talking too. 2/3 of all conference speakers are men. And this leaves women and out of a number of different opportunities. Conferences and events have a huge problem. And often it's a very visible problem. You see the same 4 old white guys on stage, and they are talking about the same things and they are agreeing with each other. So we really want to hear from different voices. We want to hear from different people. And so even if the event is virtual, nothing has changed. We still want to hear different voices and diverse points of view. It's so bad out there that it's really mocked. This is actually a Tumblr called Congrats, You Have an All-Male Panel. You're getting the big thumbs up from David Hasselhoff. It's also so bad that it's mocked. This is actually from an app called Gender Avenger, and this is the Gender Avenger tally. And what they do is they count up the number of male and female speakers on stage, and they create a social media ready image that you can use to actually show people how bad it is on stage in terms of lack of diversity. Diversity and inclusion, though, is more than just gender, and we recognize that at Innovation Women. It's about ability, it's about culture, personal characteristics, health and ability, demographic information, and professional background. And all of this diversity helps create much more interesting conversations. On Innovation Women right now, our top search terms, what people are searching for in terms of speakers, actually includes the word diversity. That is the number one search term on our database right now. Entrepreneurship, marketing, sales, nonprofit, STEM, women's leadership. I think you would expect that, but to see diversity at the number one spot and also to see diversity and inclusion definitely down there, I think we're talking about an awareness that's going on in the marketplace that's really helping us all. I also wanted to let you all know that among the top 50 keywords, we have a number of keywords that are directly addressing today's audience. We believe that diversity is as much a moral imperative as it is a business opportunity. And I will tell you that when I heard this quote from the Meeting Professionals International Group, I focused on that word opportunity because I believe that all of us should get out there and do public speaking. And every time we do it, every time we get that visibility and the opportunity to tell our story, we have opportunities, business opportunities. So I would like you all to raise your hand and say, yes, I say yes to public speaking. Because a lot of times when I talk to people, they have a whole list of reasons why they say no. So think about saying then yes the next time you're asked to talk about anything. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of public speaking. We call them the 5 C's. The first C is customers. Whenever you are on stage doing a public speaking event, whether it's a live stage or a virtual stage, you have the opportunity to tell a story, to talk to people about you and your product and your company. You have the opportunity to really show yourself as an expert. And there are potential customers in that audience listening to every word you say. The second C is the reason we're here today, or career. Companies want to hire people who are competent and confident. And when you're on stage doing a public speaking engagement, you're demonstrating both of those things. You're showing people why you're an expert, and you're showing them that you have the confidence to stand on stage and talk to an audience. The third C, cold hard cash. People who are comfortable with public speaking actually earn more. There's studies out there that talk about if you are not capable of doing public speaking, you're going to earn less. Your salary will actually be less. There's a great story from Warren Buffett. I love this. This quote is actually quite famous because the Dale Carnegie organization uses it in a lot of their marketing. Because Warren Buffett had a lot of stories for people that talked about his own ill at easeness or his own like physically getting ill every time he had to think about public speaking. And so he said, you can improve your value by 50% just by learning communication skills. And this quote actually comes from a really famous story. I don't know if you've heard it, but I'll tell you. Warren Buffett was visiting Columbia University. And while he was there, he was talking to an MBA class. And he told that MBA class that he would give each and every one of them $100,000 if they gave him a share of their future earnings. I can just imagine all these MBA students going crazy trying to figure out if this was a good deal or not. But he had more to his offer. He said, if you consent to taking public speaking classes, I will give you $150,000 for the same percentage because you are worth more to me. You will make more money. I will also say that public speaking may be one of the keys to helping us equalize pay. I don't know if you're familiar with Equal Pay Day, but Equal Pay Day represents the number of days that you have to work to earn the same amount as a white man working the same job full time. So for most women, or as a group, Equal Pay Day comes in March. For Asian women, it comes in February. For Black women, it comes in August. Native American women, September. And Latina women, that day when you earn the same as a white man, it's October 21st. Everything that we do to get you on stage is helping you be seen as a leader. And leaders earn more. When you're on stage, you're making connections. You're connecting to everybody who's in the audience, but you're also connecting to all of the people who get marketed by that organization. Now let's do a little bit of math here. Let's think about this. If an organization sends out an email with your name, your picture, your company name, and a little bit about you to everybody on their mailing list, there's a whole lot of people that are going to know you. Not every one of those people might show up at the actual speaking engagement. They might not be in the room, but they will have heard of you because the organization uses the information about its speakers to market its events. That's why you're here today, right? Marketing got to you. And there are all kinds of other people who may have seen the marketing but didn't come today. So you're not just talking to the people in the room, you're talking to everybody who sees a social media post, who gets an email, who sees an ad, who sees the program or the signage. So there's a very broad group that gets information about you as a speaker. And credibility. When you are on stage, you are the expert. Public speaking is a path to thought leadership. It's a path to being seen as a leader and being seen as an expert. So when you're on stage, that last C is credibility. Now, why should we all care about diversity and inclusion and gender equity on stage? It's because speakers are role models, and we can't be what we can't see. If we keep seeing the same 4 old white guys on stage, not only are we not going to have very interesting conversations on those stages because of the lack of diversity, we're also not going to be seeing ourselves as leaders on stage. Again, with me here, say yes to public speaking. We need you. So this is all great, Bobbie. I think this is fantastic. But are there really opportunities out there for me? I say yes. I say yes. And even with a pandemic, there's this thing, and we call it the speaker's paradise. There are opportunities for you. Pre-pandemic, did you know that there were more than 50,000 individual Tedx talks? In 2019, Eventbrite sold more than 3 million sold tickets to more than 3 million events, hundreds of millions of tickets. Meetup had more than 500,000 events every single month. And this is to say nothing of the 92,000 professional organizations that did events almost every month, many of them. Some even did weekly events. This is a $37 billion industry, and there are lots and lots of opportunities for speakers if you know where to look. Now, yep, there was absolutely a pandemic. And in March of last year, the event managers had decisions to make. They could either cancel, they could postpone, or they could go virtual. And I'm happy to say that many of them went virtual. And I don't expect virtual to go away when the pandemic ends. So I think people who are very comfortable talking to a camera are going to do quite well going forward. And this whole virtual world, there are so many benefits for you if you get comfortable with this. There are increased options because you don't have to just do speaking engagements that are in your backyard or be prepared to travel. So you can do a speaking engagement anywhere in the world virtually. There's also decreased competition. A lot of people said, you know what? This is not for me. I am not comfortable with this technology. I will wait until the world changes back again. Between you and me, I think they're going to have a long wait. Now, let's talk about how to get the gig. If you have the ability to do it right now, I'm going to do something that most speakers who are doing virtual events don't want you to do. I'm going to ask you to open up another tab on your browser and go to Google and put in the words call for speakers, put it in quotations, and then put in your expertise. I think one of the things that you probably want to do as well is put in the year. So put in 2021. And what you're going to do is you're going to start getting connected with calls for speakers. This is the basic currency of public speaking at industry conferences and events. Conferences and events put out calls where they request speakers come and apply. You'll be filling in your name, your contact information. You'll be putting together an abstract and a biography, and you'll be submitting this information to speak at an industry conference or an event. Now, people who do a lot of this, what they're doing is they have abstracts and they have biographies and they have information that they've created, and they're doing this search on a regular basis. I'm hoping to hear afterwards when we get into the question and answer section that some of you actually did this while we were talking and were able to find a speaking engagement that could be relevant for you. This is your opportunity to connect with event managers. And every time you do a great job as a speaker, you're going to get more opportunities, because those who speak again and again and again. You know, those old 4 white guys, they keep getting those opportunities to speak because other event managers see them on stage. So the more you do this public speaking work, the more opportunities you're going to get. So another way to actually get connected with potential public speaking opportunities is to connect directly with event managers at events that you go to and ask them, what do they look for in a public speaker? What are they looking for right now? Who do they want to put on stage? Because often when they're running events, the best potential speakers are the ones who are in the audience already. One of the things about public speaking is most people think about it as a single person on stage by themselves. It might be the keynote or the featured speaker. The reality is there are so many opportunities that are out there for groups. You don't have to be on stage by yourself at all. You could be part of a panel. You don't have to put together a presentation or anything. You're just going to be sitting on stage with a group of your friends and colleagues and peers, and you're talking about the things that you do every day. You're not alone. It's not intimidating. You're able to be having a conversation, and there just happens to be an audience there. Another opportunity is to be a co-presenter. You're doing a presentation with someone else. Or maybe you could be a guest lecturer at a college or university, or even your local high school. You could be the moderator or the MC. Or if you're a little bit nervous about getting started with public speaking, one of the suggestions I have is to be the person in the audience who stands up when the speaker says, "Are there any questions?" and says, "Hi, my name is, I work for this company, and I'd like to ask you," this is your opportunity to talk to the same exact audience that the speakers on stage spoke to. You're asking a question from the audience. And if you're asking a thoughtful question and you're speaking clearly and with confidence, you might just be capturing the interest of an event manager who's standing in the back of the room and saying, "That's a great question. I need to ask that person to talk next time." So if you want to get started with public speaking, that's one of my first suggestions. Ask questions from the audience. Now, speaking of those event managers, let's talk about what they want. What are they looking for in a speaker? Got to tell you, the thing that they want the most is they want to sell tickets. They want to fill the seats of their event. They want to have an event where hundreds of people show up. And that often means that they are looking at the speakers and they're saying, how much of a following does that person have? Is there a recognizable name? Do people know them? So they're looking for somebody kind of with a little bit of personal fame. Maybe they work for a known company. Maybe they have hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. Or maybe they're talking about a topic that everyone wants to hear about. So it isn't just the person, it's also the topic. Now, event managers tell me that they also want easy to manage speakers. This is not the time to be a prima donna. This is not the time to be high maintenance. Okay. Working with the event managers is a way to get them to want you to come back. And another thing that event managers are looking for is happy audiences. They want to see the audience walking out the door and saying, "Oh my goodness, that was amazing. You know, when can I see more of that? And can I come back?" So instead of a sales conversation or you talking about what you want to talk about, think about what that audience wants. Because what that audience wants is one step more to what the event manager wants. So if you think about putting together a presentation, think about it as, how can I make my audience happy? Because that will make the event manager happy. Now, when we're looking for opportunities, one of the things that we do is we look for things like these hashtags. Remember those people I talked to you about earlier? So the Congrats You Have an All-Male Panel group and the Gender Avenger group, they've used some of these hashtags. Change the ratio, gender balance, all-male panel, manel. You can guess what that is, right? An all-male panel. And YAM. This is one I hadn't heard of before last year. YAM stands for Yet Another All-Male Meeting. That actually means that in addition to having all men on stage, you have all men in the audience too, which I think is absolutely incredible. But often what we see on stage drives what we see in the audience. So I know that I threw an awful lot at all of you, but I just want to say that if you can do one thing, is say yes to public speaking and then figure out what you're going to say. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. I know I sped through that, but I know the questions are where things get really interesting. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to invite Laura to come back up here. So if you have any questions, why don't you drop them into the chat? Because, oh my goodness, I see all kinds of questions already.
Okay. So let's see here. I'm seeing some questions in the chat. And the
Lots
first
of them.
question is from Jacqueline. What is the best way to prepare for a presentation?
I think one of the things is figuring out what you're going to say and how you say it. So remember I talked a little bit earlier about how you want to keep your audience happy. If you can figure out what problem you're going to solve for an audience, you are a long way toward creating a great presentation. So think about what the audience is looking for. A lot of people often start presentations by focusing on what they want to tell people and not on what people want to know. So focus on the audience first, and it's the first great step.
That really makes a lot of sense. We have the next question from Deborah. Any tips on how to stay calm and collected when presenting?
Practice, practice, practice. I literally did like absolutely go to pieces the first time I walked on stage. And I was not particularly young at the time, but I had spent my early career getting other people out there on stage. So I worked in public relations, and it was my job to secure speaking engagements for our executives. And it never occurred to me when I started running events that I was going to have to be the person on stage. I mean, I blocked it from my mind. And that first Mass Innovation Nights event I was kind of shocked. I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to actually be a public speaker myself right now. And I got out there and I was incredibly nervous and I didn't really plan ahead. So planning ahead, that's always a good thing to do. I didn't practice. I did everything wrong and just really very, very nervous. So I would say plan ahead, practice. I think everybody has a magic number. Like you have a number of times that you'll run through your presentation so that you get comfortable with it. And my magic number is 8. Like I will run through a presentation 8 times before I give it live in front of an audience. So get comfortable, know what you want to say, and practice. Okay.
Solid advice. Next, we have a question. Not sure who this person is, but what are some ideas for brainstorming what to talk about? She is young in her career and not a subject matter expert.
I think everybody's a subject matter expert in something. So one of the first panels that we put together for Innovation Women was actually a panel of young women who were talking about how they got their first job. Okay. It had nothing to do with the number of years they had been in the business or been in these roles. In fact, most of them were still in their first jobs. They had never been on stage before, and they were up there as a group with an audience of rapt listeners talking about how they got their first jobs. And so that's something that they might not have thought about in terms of putting together a presentation. You know, it had nothing to do with their career expertise or the companies they worked for. It was more of a personal matter. So match your audience and their expertise and their needs to what you're going to talk about. But sit down and think about the things that you've done and you're doing every day. We get requests for different kinds of speakers on Innovation Women. And some of the things that we get regular requests for are people that are hands-on experts. I want somebody to come in and show me how to do an email newsletter or show me how to use Instagram. So there's a group of speaking opportunities that are very focused on being an expert user and a how-to. I think there's also an opportunity when you get further on in your career to shift from that expert role to the visionary role. And visionaries talk differently. They give presentations that help people think differently about the world. Experts are very focused on how to. So different things that you can do at different stages in your career.
Awesome. And I know you mentioned earlier, like one of the advices that you would give for someone is to have a topic that people are interested in.
Yep.
So we have a question from Umid. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. His question is how to figure out hot topics that audience would want to hear about.
I go and I look at other events and I see what is on their programs. Totally admit it. So if you're looking at your industry, you can often find the top conferences and events in your industry and go and look and see what is on the agenda. What are they doing presentations about? And you can find out and, you know, kind of keep track of what they do year after year. A lot of these conferences happen every year. And so you can look back over the course of several years and see the agendas. Often an agenda will contain certain things that they do every year. You know, it's the same thing. There's always a session on email marketing. There's always a session on social media. But you can find the new things that are kind of the cutting edge opportunities and see what they're interested in.
That's perfect. And I know we already kind of covered a part of this question in terms of being comfortable when we're up there speaking. So we have a question from Abby about what are some techniques that you would recommend to help with nerves?
So number one, everybody gets nervous. Accept it. Okay. Everybody feels those little butterflies in their stomach. Reframe how you think about being nervous. It isn't that you're nervous, it's that you're excited. You want to channel those nerves into the energy that makes you an engaging speaker. Now, sometimes if you're a little bit nervous, you might speed up and talk really, really fast, right? Yeah. So think about the power of the pause. If you want to emphasize something, you don't speak super fast, you slow down. You leave that time for the audience to really focus on that word and that idea. So channeling your energy, making sure you're not going too fast, and take the time. Don't be running around right before you get on stage. Don't run upstairs if you're at your house and you're going to do a virtual event. Just take a minute, sit down, take a deep breath, but do remember that everybody gets nervous. It's not unusual.
And I will add, Bobbie, that usually like those pauses feel very long to us, but they're really not that long to the other people.
Yes, you can actually take a really big pause on stage. Like sometimes, like, I'm going to take a pause, drink. It's only a matter of a couple seconds, right?
Yeah, it's really not that bad. So we have the next question from Kylie. Your example of practicing public speaking by asking questions during Q&A sessions was excellent. Are there other practice opportunities with low stakes that you would recommend?
Schools love public speakers to come and practice on them. Okay, don't frame it that way. But colleges, universities, your local high school, there are so many organizations with students that are looking for speakers. If you know someone who's a college professor, come in and talk to their class. These are opportunities to get in front of an audience. And I'm not going to say it's low stakes because it's important for us to model being good public speakers to students, but it is definitely for a lot of people a way to get started.
All right. And maybe you'll have some insight to our next question. I haven't really looked into it, so I'm not sure. This is from Melvin. How does one get booked on a TEDx talk?
This is where I admit that even though I've done one, I didn't go the usual route. So I was a last minute fill-in. I was contacted by Suffolk University, the student group that put on a TEDx every year. And they said, we'd love to have you come and do a TEDx. I'm like, oh my God, of course, I'd love to. And I'm like, when is it? And I'm picturing, like 6 months from now, a year from now, next year. And they're like, Tuesday. I'm like, it's the weekend. Like Tuesday is in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And they said, yes.
No pressure.
I'm like, no. I said, no. I will find someone else for you. And nobody else was crazy enough to do it. So I ended up doing it. I'm not going to say that it was my finest hour, but I'm not embarrassed. Now, the normal route for a TEDx talk is to apply. And TED and TEDx have a website, a main website that actually lists all of the TEDx talks, all of them. And what you do is you kind of look, I'd say 6 months to 8 months out, and you'll see the ones that are not yet scheduled. And you're going to go to their websites and you're going to find the one that makes sense for you. Like all speaking opportunities, you want to look for the ones that speak to your heart. Don't go if you're a guy and say, I'm going to do the TEDx women event. Not going to work out too well. You want to find one that is a connection for you. A lot of speakers, they do what I call TED chopping. And TED shopping means they go apply to all the TEDx's all over the world. And that's not going to really work out too well. So what you want to do is find one that is a connection to you. Maybe it's where you grew up. Maybe it's in your hometown. Maybe it's where you live now. Maybe it's where you went to college. So look for those connections. And one of the pieces of advice I have for how to get selected is to think about TEDx's tagline. It's ideas worth spreading. What they're looking for at TED and TEDx is an idea that gets someone in the audience to jump up out of their seat and go, yes, I can do that too, and run out the door excited to do whatever it is you told them. Okay. So think about the idea or the thought that you can share with somebody else that will get them excited about it, and enough excited that they'll run out the door wanting to do it.
That's awesome advice. Thank you. And we have a lot of questions, so I hope we have time to get through them all. So we have a question from Jay. He's an expert in his field and a seasoned speaker, but he's having difficulty reaching people at organizations who actually have the power to book speakers. Do you have any advice for him?
Gotcha. So I'm going to ask a little bit of a question. I mean, are you looking for paid speaking opportunities, or are you looking for opportunities to get on stage? So maybe you can put that information if you want to. I think they can direct message me. Is that the case? If he doesn't want to put that in the
send it to the panelists. Send it to all.
But I will say that what you're going to do is you're going to find out who the people are who book the events. And often their title is event manager or content coordinator. You're going to look for the people who are doing that. In order to connect with them, it's a little bit harder these days. I usually recommend that people go and attend the events. Connect with the speakers. Ask who booked you. Because once somebody has spoken at an event, you know, if it's a conference, they might come back every year. But, you know, however much I love ALPFA is probably not going to have me come back once I've done this. Right?
What?
So, but what I'm saying is you can ask the speakers who they connected with. Get connected to the speakers. These days, it's actually pretty easy to find a connection to most people through LinkedIn or Twitter or some other social network. And you can say, I saw you speak at such and such a conference. Who did you connect with to get that opportunity? So we call that a North Star. If there's somebody who is doing what you want to do, follow them. Say, how did you get there? And ask them to make an introduction. I would just love to do what you did. Can you connect me with the person that invited you? So those are a couple of ideas for getting connected to the right people.
Awesome. The next question that we have, I'm very interested in actually knowing this answer. It's from Rosalind. How do you sound natural and remember what you need to say instead of reading notes?
Oh, so you probably noticed that I stumble occasionally. And you know what? I notice every single stumble, every one of them. And people are like, oh no, I didn't notice a thing. That's right. Nobody notices except you. If you are speaking naturally and normally, you will naturally stumble a little bit. And it's okay. You know, you kind of accept that. So you get comfortable with just talking. And if you know where you're going, you've practiced enough times, you're going to eliminate most of the you know, those like little filler noises and the filler words. But if you eliminate them all and you never stumble, you don't actually sound normal. You don't sound natural. There are a lot of organizations that help with public speaking. For example, the Toastmasters organization. Like, they have great groups that will help you practice public speaking, and they focus a lot on tactics and techniques to help you eliminate all of those little the filler noises. But I find that too much focus on that is actually counterproductive, and people get very focused on it. So practice enough and make peace with the fact that occasionally you're going to stumble and occasionally you're going to have a filler word, and you sound perfectly normal.
No, we are our worst critics, so that's good to know. The next question we have is from Vidu. If you could share some tips or something to be careful for virtual speakers as compared to an in-person speaking, do you recommend keeping notes or handouts?
So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look at my notes. Okay, no, don't do that. There's the camera. And if you put a little dot right next to your camera lens, you'll focus in the right place. So a little red dot right up there. Another thing is, if you have a Zoom webinar on a big wide screen, sometimes it's better to minimize that screen just slightly so that it's up underneath your camera and it looks like you're looking right at people. So I don't know if you could see the difference when I shifted to the small box from the big box. Now I have a big screen here, and Laura's over here, the chat's over here. So I'm not looking right at the camera, but when I use the small box, I'm looking right there, aren't I? So that's just one tip. There's hundreds of them. I actually just wrote an article for Forbes, I think it was like last week, where I give the A to Z tips for doing video interviews. And there's all kinds of tips on that article. I can probably find it pretty quickly and pop it up there at the end of the program.
Okay. Awesome. So the next question, since you just mentioned Toastmasters, we have a question from Yolanda. What are other groups or organizations people can join to practice their public speaking?
Find yourself an improv class. Okay, I know that sounds a little like crazy. Okay, number one, totally fun. All right. Number two, you get real comfortable with improv and not having to read information, and you get comfortable with yourself, like being out there. So I always recommend improv classes. There's an organization that was actually started in Massachusetts called the Speaker Sisterhood, and they have a great program specific to women. And often you'll find public speaking classes through your community adult education programs. So there's a lot of really good ones out there. Oh, and Innovation Women has a wonderful speaker resources section and lots of great educational material. Is that good, Kristen? I got my commercial in?
Yes, innovationwomen.com. You can just go there. A lot of great resources. We have another question from Tariq. Can you share some icebreakers that help deliver a presentation?
For me to the audience, or icebreakers? Oh, thank you for whoever put up my article. Icebreakers. So I think there are icebreakers that are oriented toward group participation. I often look for starting a presentation with a little bit of a story. So it's great to have an introduction and all of these things. And, a lot of speakers will start their presentations with, "This is who I am." I prefer to actually start with a story or an activity that gets people to just dive right in, because after you've been introduced, like, the audience tension is up here. They're like, "Okay, we're ready to go. We're ready to go." And then the speaker delivers this long, kind of semi-boring introduction of themselves. It's like, just dive in, like, get people thinking immediately about what your topic is.
Awesome. So now we have a question from Jennifer, or I guess a couple of questions from Jennifer. So I guess the first one would be, for someone who's looking to branch out and is still fairly new to presenting, what would you suggest would be the ideal way to recover the audience after you've gone astray from your original presentation?
Admit it. Seriously. Like, we're talking human to human. Admit that you got off track and bring it back. And it's fine to say, "Oh, we took a little detour. We got distracted. Now we're coming back. We're bringing it back." Right? Have a little fun with it. Talk to them as other humans. Just say, "Oh my goodness, that was such a tangent. Let's get back to the matter at hand."
I like being honest. Always helps. And then the second part of our question is, do you recommend leaving all questions to the end or fitting it throughout the presentation?
So I think it's what you're comfortable with. I really do. If you are presenting and you're using slides on Zoom these days, if you've got the full screen share that you're doing, it's very hard to kind of go back and forth and manage the Q&A. So I am not these days doing that. Whereas when I do live presentations, often I have no problem stopping in the middle and answering questions.
It's very helpful. So the next question that we have is from Elizabeth, and we probably have time for 2 more questions after this one. Are speaker hunters looking for a particular physical look, such as race, ethnicity?
So right now, a lot of the people, we call them event managers. That's the kind of catch-all phrase that we use internally, just so y'all know. And a lot of them are much more aware than they used to be, because frankly, they've been called on the carpet for the lack of diversity. So a lot of them are definitely looking to change things out, to bring new voices forth. And I think that that is super important, because quite frankly, the same old isn't going to cut it anymore. So they are definitely looking to make sure they have some form of gender equity on stage. And it doesn't work if you have 4 white women either. Diversity is contextual. Like, if you have a group that all looks the same, they are definitely going to have very similar perspectives. So everybody is looking for additional diversity these days. And a lot of the event managers who come to our website are definitely looking to make sure that they bring new voices forth.
Okay. And we have we use this time for one last question from the audience, from Eduardo. I think this is a great question. Do you know any organizations similar to Innovation Women open to Latino men?
So number one, I usually tell people that Innovation Women has 1,500 awesome women speakers and a handful of really secure guys. I mean, what kind of a diversity and inclusive organization would we be if we didn't welcome men? So we absolutely welcome men. And there are a lot of guys that are on Innovation Women, because the speaking and events that we offer are not just for women. Now, I fully admit that when an event manager comes to Innovation Women and they are scrolling down a big list of speakers, they are probably not going to be choosing the guys unless they're building a panel of male allies, which we've gotten those speakers placed. And most of the guys who are on Innovation Women, I would absolutely call allies. Our other company, the one that we bought over last summer, it's called My Speaker Leads. It is not designed the same way as Innovation Women. Innovation Women provides hundreds of calls for speakers. So these are with deadlines, and they're a form that you fill out or a place that you submit your information. And My Speaker Leads, which is myspeakerleads.com, is designed to do more to connect professional speakers with speaking opportunities. So it's somewhat related, but it's not quite the same. There are other websites out there where you can put up your profile and connect with speaking opportunities, but I would say a lot of them, they're not quite as proactive as we are in terms of connecting with event managers.
All right. And we're almost at time, Bobbie. This was incredible. Thank you so much. I have learned a lot, and I hope everyone else in the audience has as well. Please don't forget that we have the 25% off discount for our ALPFA Boston members. So please, if you're interested, email us at social@boston.alpha.org and we'll get you that code, or stay tuned for our ALPFA Boston newsletter, which will be coming out soon. Before we wrap up, Sophia, we'll be doing some closing statements.
Oh, I have to say one thing.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Bobbie.
Paula, I love you, Paula. Paula did her assignment and she found a gig as a speaker and an opportunity to apply. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Thank
I would like to pay my deep respect to all the attendees for your positive participation in this event. And I hope that what you have learned today will help you in your public speaking engagement and lead to the success of your professional careers. Thank you so much, Bobbie, for leading such a great session and for all the wisdom and great tips that you shared with us tonight. My biggest takeaway was to always say yes to public speaking, connect with all the opportunities presented in your speaking engagement, and embrace your story. So please make sure to follow ALPFA Boston and Innovation Woman on our social media accounts to stay up to date on our latest content and for an event on how to apply for the PP loan hosted by the ALPFA Boston Entrepreneurship Committee coming up this Wednesday. That concludes our event for this evening, and thank you once again for joining us, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you, Bobbie. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bobbie.